Hi, my name is Tisha, and I would like to welcome you to today's virtual Yellowstone tour, classroom edition. In this video, I'm going to give you a 2,000-foot aerial view of why Yellowstone National Park needs to be on your bucket list and how it set an incredible precedent for all the national parks to come around the world, as it was the world's first national park. And many people understand Yellowstone for the millions of untouched acres where wildlife roams, and this isn't far from the truth. In fact, Yellowstone is one of the only untouched ecosystems in the world. And you're going to say, well, there's people there. Of course, people are there. We've established roadways and bathrooms and hotels and things like that. But everything else in the park is as it would be if humans weren't there. So the waterways, the plant life, the animal life, all of that. So in essence, nature doesn't get much more natural than it does in Yellowstone National Park. And in this sanctuary lies the greatest concentration of wildlife in the lower 48 United States. And of course there's Alaska, and they've got a lot of wildlife, blah, blah, blah. But Yellowstone, lower 48 United States, this is it. Greatest concentration of wildlife. So this sanctuary is so large that it actually encompasses the territory of 3 different states. You have Wyoming that has the largest portion of it, and then Montana, and then Idaho. My home sweet home. Of course, Idaho only gets to claim 1%, but I'm going to take it because this park is awesome. So we could talk all day about everything that abounds above the Earth's crust, but lesser known is that of what lies below the ground, which is an actual supervolcano. And I know that sounds like something from the movies, but it's true. This supervolcano is what fuels the hydrothermal features above the ground that make Yellowstone famous, like Old Faithful. A lot of people have heard of Old Faithful, and that's for the regular intervals that this geyser erupts. All of the wildlife in the park live among the Earth's largest group of geysers. Okay, that's huge. On top of a prehistoric massive volcano that is still living and breathing. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, honestly. Let's go back in time, back to the 1800s. Fur trappers began traveling through what's the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. So Yellowstone has its official boundaries, and then the greater Yellowstone ecosystem is there's a lot of territory outside of it. The animals themselves don't just stop where the park's boundaries are. There's not a fence. They can just come and go. So that's part of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. So they come through, and in 1872, President Ulysses S. Grant signed the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act into law. Thus, the first national park in the entire world was created. However, back then, they weren't into bureaucracy as much as we are today. There was no such bureau as the National Park Service. So it was up to a handful of individuals to manage the park and everything that goes along with it, with no monetary resources. So as you can imagine, they had a very difficult time keeping troublemakers from making trouble. And in those days, poaching was probably a much bigger issue than it is today. I'd say we have that issue under much better control, but the amount of poaching that went on is absolutely heinous. So Yellowstone National Park management was performed by the United States Army because they were able to enforce a lot more of the regulations than volunteers. So they're taking care of business, but as time goes on, they start to realize that they cannot cater to the natural curiosities and needs of people traveling through. They didn't have much of a scientific foundation and understanding of the park as we do today. And then, of course, tourists need lots of things. They need toilets, and they need roads, and they need food and hotels, and there's a lot more work involved. So in 1916, the federal government created what is now the National Park Service. However, they did not implement any funding for the new Park Service, which in hindsight, it's like, come on guys, you can't do anything without money. So the Army moved out. They're like, yay, we can go focus on what we're good at. And then things start to fall apart, and they had to quickly move back into Yellowstone. Interestingly enough, the Park Service didn't actually start to function until 1918, holy smokes, when Stephen Mather was placed in charge. And I could talk about this all day, but I really want to cover what is interesting to you. One of the things that I would like to cover that's interesting to me later on is the connection between COVID and the hot springs. They seem pretty unrelated, but there's a very direct link. And for that matter, there's a very direct link between the hot springs and profiling cancer genes. Okay, so very pertinent things that we do today that affect the health of the world directly tie into discoveries and research accomplished in the 1960s. I would love to talk about that, but that's kind of nerdy. Okay, so if I have some nerds that are listening, leave a comment so that I know that you're interested, and we'll talk about that. Of course, I said that before. I need to cover safety, because if I do convince you to come to the park, the first thing that you need to make sure and do is stay safe. Okay, this is a wild habitat, and there's volcano, there's bears and coyotes and cliffs, and the elements are incredible. So we're going to talk about safety a little bit later on. But if you are interested in Yellowstone National Park, you want to delve into the information with me and have fun with it, please comment below which parts of the park you would like to learn about, and I'll make a video just for you. If you liked this brief synopsis, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your time, for watching, and I sincerely hope to see you in the park.